Hey, Brian Stevens with Case of K-12, and we're going to really dig deep today on secret shopping public schools, charter schools, even homeschools across the entire nation and what we've learned over the past 5 years. Now, we're calling it a little bit of an adjustment on our original plan. Originally, we were going to do a webinar. It was going to come in a couple weeks. And we started putting this webinar out on what we learned secret shopping schools. And what we mean by secret shopping is only what new parents would see when they're trying to evaluate a choice between you and your competition. And so we didn't secret shop like the entire school district from stem to stern. We really focus on just the recruitment and retention efforts of students. That certainly captures a lot. But that's what our focus is. And we represent exclusively public schools to recruit and retain your students in the face of ever increasing competition around the nation. Originally, we were going to do a webinar, and we heard from a lot of school districts around the nation that it's like, hey guys, Brian, man, and they were yelling at Kayla over here. They yelled a lot more at Kayla than they did me. And so Kayla came and she said, look, we got to make an adjustment to this. A lot of schools are going to be getting back into form, and they really want some of these tips now so they can begin to train their personnel to really focus on enrollment and retention right from the very start of school. They don't want to wait and get into it mid-semester. And I was like, they're absolutely right. So instead of a webinar, we're going to produce this YouTube video. We're going to send it out via email. I guess that's probably how you found it. And that way you can bake it out. So let's get into the meat of it. This is going to be a little rubric heavy, a little nerdy, but we are going to get into really 4 basic blocks that we use to evaluate a school district's enrollment and retention opportunities. I'm really going to focus more on new students coming to the district or even students that used to be with you coming back. And we evaluate this through 4 primary criteria. Did I say that word right? Once again, COVID made me gray and I'm losing track of words to use and things like that. So anyway, let's keep going. So 4 main blocks. First impression, how the school communicated their overall enrollment process, and a website to review, because a lot of times that's an entry. But let's talk about first impressions first. It's so interesting how quickly someone can be turned off with that first impression. And we've heard this old adage, you can't really undo a bad first impression. Well, that's true of schools too. And we really take it from when we're driving in, how do we find it? Is it easily accessible on a Google map? I secret shopped a school district the other day, Kayla, and the map, it was a new school. And Google didn't have the right location on the map. And so it sent me the wrong way. I was driving in circles and there was no great signage there. So I was already frustrated before I even got to see this awesome facility. So when we mean first impressions, we really mean all the way from how do they find you to the arrival, all the way up until pretty much right after that first contact. So that box is really important because you never get a second chance to make a first impression unless you have a really bad memory like me. And then you can do multiple first impressions with me. I will remember. So have fun. The second box is really, what did they do once you arrive? How do they treat you, even if this is a phone call? Do they offer you a tour? Are they enthusiastic? Do they badmouth? Do they only talk about what they want to talk about? Do they make the ask? Do they explain why you would join that school? Or do they give you a pamphlet and send you on your way? So that's that kind of second box. And then we dig into the enrollment process, and the enrollment process is really, really important for us. And we consider the enrollment process much like a sales pipeline. You want a lot of people to come and get that first impression, a lot of people to communicate to you, and you're going to lose some as some people move out of the area, some people choose the competition. But are there any bottlenecks in the enrollment process that make people not want to enroll with you? That can turn people off too. So that's a part of our secret shopping program too. And then the website, collateral material, mailers, advertising material. What does the overall website look? Does it have what I am interested in? And does it have what I am interested in as a new parent? So let's get into what we learned. We're going to run through a hard example of a district that we just got done doing a couple months ago. And so we've erased the names to protect the innocent and the guilty. on this. But you'll see here, basically we give everyone a general score, and then we give them their boxes underneath that. I just want you to understand kind of the nerdy framework that we present. And we use kind of a subjective and an objective model, and I would encourage you to do the same when you're evaluating your own system, right? So what I mean by subjective and objective is I am comparing you to the national best practices that I've ever seen. The only way to get an A is to meet the national best standard. So that kind of is the why so few people get an A, because kind of grade it like we did in law school. You had a class, Kayla, in law school, you had 30 people, there'd be 3 A's. That's it. Everyone else got something lesser than that. And so we're kind of graded on a curve for the A's. But for the C, a C is how do you directly compare to your competition? How do you directly compare? So if you get a C minus, for instance, you're underperforming compared to your local competition. But in order to get that A, you not only have to outperform your local competition, you got to be a national best practice. Little confusing maybe. We get it. And I think it brings more value of great suggestions for how schools can actually improve and get better. Because I know you want to be the best. I want you to be the best. So we grade off the best, but also see how you smash up right against the competition. So this is a typical scorecard that we present, and it's data-driven. It's not theoretical basis with no rubric. And so let me stop getting into the science. I know I'm nerding out. Kayla's over here going, Brian, go faster. They don't want to nerd out with you on a YouTube video. They could do that in face with you. You're right. I'm sorry. Let's keep moving along here. So you guys know the purpose. Well, I shouldn't skip it. Here's the purpose of secret shopping. I'm going to encourage you to secret shop yourself. We become nose deaf, eye blind to the things that we see every single day. You'll walk in a house or a hotel and you'll see a little bit of cobwebs in the corner that you won't notice in your own house, because after a while you just start to ignore certain things. So, you as a principal, you as a superintendent, are you walking your campuses? Are you looking with a fresh set of eyes in enrollment process? Are you going to another person's campus and evaluating? Do you spend any time looking at the competition and how they're doing it? I know it's a burden on you. Your job is to educate them little babies, and you need to do that, but you don't get a shot at educating them little babies if you can't get past the first impression and if you lose all your students to the competition. So the purpose is to know where you stand against the competition, because that's how the family members are comparing you. So we think it's really important. Let's give some great takeaways on this, and I'm going to compare it to some of what we see nationally. All right, so let's dig into what we've learned about first impressions. In general, you need to be thanking your grounds crew. The people mowing the yard, cutting the grass, and picking up garbage. I mean, fundamentally, I am shocked at the complete tone deafness that some people have when they're walking in and out of their own schools. If you walk to a hotel and you saw a big mousetrap right in front of the door, it's going to give you pause, isn't it? If you're trying to park and you can't figure out where the entrance is because there's no signs, you're not going to be really happy. When you walk into the lobby of this hotel, if it's dark and it's dingy and it's dirty, you're probably going to turn around. And the one thing that we've seen across the nation is some people are paying attention to this basic stuff and some people just aren't. And the main reason why we keep first impressions in here is because I know you get busy. I'll be as forgiving as anybody else, but it doesn't matter because the competition is going to have a clean school, freshly painted. I'm not suggesting you have to have a new building. But what about the marquee sign that you've got? The sign out in front of your building, and so many schools nowadays have these signs, and the information they put on it is out of date. I mean, the entire summer, it'll go, have a great summer. And then they'll put welcome back or something, and welcome back will stay up there for 2 months. It's got to be current or pressing, or you've got to get rid of it. And Kayla, this leads me to another thing. Updated information. So we're gonna jump into the website issue for another thing. People love to put calendars on their websites. Some stock image website program says, build a calendar of all your events. That's an awesome idea. I think you absolutely should have a calendar letting people know what is coming up. unless you're not going to keep it updated. And more often than not, these schools that we look at don't keep information up to date. So it's better just to shut it down. I mean, don't have a Facebook, don't have a social media, don't have a Twitter if you're not going to keep it up to date. Better just to liquidate it. And so if you're going to have a sign up front, keep it update or get rid of it. I'm not telling you what the right answer is. If you're too busy to keep it updated, get rid of it, because it makes it look like you've gone out of business when it's old information up there, or like you're just not really paying attention. But let's talk about a few other really pro things here for the first impressions. Often, schools are trying to find really important things for the PTA or PTO, the parent-teacher organizations that exist. What are they going to do? What are their functions? How can they help? They want to be helpful. Plannings are awesome idea. A cleanup crew is an awesome idea. Certainly, you want them to help you raise money for sports and bands and art and programs like that to get you new equipment. But really, somebody in that PTA is going to have a fascination with gardening. And you should capture that it's really noticeable. The schools that you can tell somebody is volunteering their time to make it look pretty. That means they're vested in the school and they care about the school. And it's so awesome versus the other ones that don't have that. Now, Kayla, I didn't say they had to have that. Did you hear me say they had to have it? Kayla's saying I didn't say they had to have it, but it's an A. It's the best practice. Great signage to let people know if you're a new family where to go. Think about if you've ever tried to rent an apartment. What do they have right out there? The premier spot, the best spot. But it's potential tenant or future resident parking. Oh, we want you future residents. Do you have that? Do you have future family parking out front? So they feel like, wow, they care about me as a new family member coming in, and I feel like they're already starting off on a really good step. So we did find with a lot of schools around the nation, especially the public schools, the signage is just weak. Nobody seems to be on top of that. So another big hurdle that we've seen right from the street getting in. I already mentioned if I can't find the location, that's a problem. If somebody's coming for a tour, somebody's coming to visit, do you just say Google the school, or do you send them the address? And if there's a problem with the address, do you tell them? I was really shocked that nobody at the school told me there was going to be a problem getting to that location because it was a new site. To look for this particular sign, which was a little small. They didn't take care of me. They didn't make me feel like I was wanted as a potential new parent. So signage is going to be a big deal. But here's another problem we've seen at a few schools around the nation. The parking and crossing guards. What's their role? What's their purpose? Safety first. Absolutely. But can they be safety first and be happy and positive and nice and polite and warm and friendly? Or do they need to be, little, I'm trying to think of the right word here, but, people with whistles that scream and yell at people because they're not doing the right thing. So I went and secret shopped a particular school that they couldn't understand why they were having so many problems. They had great test scores. Their parents really cared. The building was a little outdated, but it was clean. It was kept up. It was nice. And in the past year and a half, they had all these people cancel on their tours. They had a really pro tour, and I'm going to get into that, where they would take you around the campus and show you everything. And they were advocating. They were selling for their school. They were proud of it. People were canceling tours at a larger percentage than normal. So we did a secret shopping for them. So the first thing I do is I'm in my car. I've got my daughter. She's going to play test child for the district. And I'm pulling up, and the parking guards start blowing whistles and pointing at me to keep going. Oh, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm a soldier. I'll do what I'm told. So I pulled into a parking lot that I thought they were directing me to. And then another security guard or another, I don't know, it's a crossing guard. I don't know what they were, but they had a uniform of some sort, and they came up and said, "You can't park here. This is for teachers only." Well, I didn't know that. I don't know why you're yelling at me about it, dude. I mean, I got reverse in my car. I can leave. It's not a big deal. So I pulled back out. Families are still kind of coming and going. The tour was scheduled at like 8 o'clock, and the school started taking people in at like 7:15, and school started like 8:15 or something. So they scheduled a tour right kind of during that peak time, and that's why it was a little chaotic. Now, the same guard that pointed me to keep going the other way. Now, If I followed that direction, I would have left the area. He pushed me back out onto the main street. What's the chances that I would have turned back around for a, let's see, second time or third time to struggle with trying to figure out where to go? At what point do you just throw your hands up and be like, I got another appointment at a charter school, at a homeschool in an hour. I'll just go get coffee and go to that. I mean, at what point do you just say, I can't handle this anymore? And they're blowing their whistles at me, man. Whistle, whistle, whistle. Go this way, go this way. It was very stressful already. And I finally stopped because I had to do this tour to give an evaluation. I might have left, rolled down my window, and I said, excuse me. And he goes, blew his whistle at me again and said, go this way. And I go, yo, you got to stop yelling at me, man. I'm a first timer. Man. I don't know where in the world you're directing me, but it's not where I need to go. And he looks at me and he goes, well, park over there. Oh, okay. So finally I went in, I parked. I still didn't know where to go. It was a high school campus. I didn't have any idea where the front door was. So once again, signage, a parking place. And can't they just, if somebody looks a little lost, can't they be like, hey, go over there and take a left and walk into that building? Can't they take 5 seconds to sell the school? And I don't blame them, by the way. I don't blame the crossing guards. I blame leadership. Leadership should be testing these programs and really looking to see what the first impression looks like. So, does the principal put a hat on and a mask so nobody recognizes them and they see how they get treated? Or do they not? And that's what I would suggest that you do. And I get that we get busy. We forget to clean everything properly all the time because you're educating the kids, but you've got to look at this stuff. So the one thing that we did for this particular school is we took away the whistles. That meant they had to talk to other human beings. And you give a boy a whistle, he's going to use it. He doesn't mean anything about it. I can't speak to what women do with whistles. What do women do with whistles, Kayla? Do they blow them all the time? And Kayla says they don't really blow the whistles, a lot of people. But men will. They'll blow that whistle and point because it's easier than saying, hey, would you drive over here? So we just took the whistles away, man. That was it. And everybody then had to become like human beings again and like polite to other humans. And so you've got to really look at that all the way up to the front door. And I think that that's pretty much the key to first impressions. Really, what does it look like to a new parent? It doesn't have to be perfect. And I go back to the rat traps. Literally, some of the schools that we were, and this was charter schools too, they had the rat traps like out in front, those big black boxes that rats come and go from. I'm like, oh yeah, I definitely want my kid to go to this school so they could hang out with the rats. Not saying you can't have rats, but can't you put the trap behind a bush or something? I just want you to be aware that people are really petty when there's competition on board, and they'll just pick another school based on something pretty basic. All right, let's talk about the second big box, communications. I'm pausing because really there's only one thing I want to teach you. Over and over again, in public schools that we've seen around the nation, the front desk workers, the people that are on staff at the schools, remember they're not always showing up to the district. So those pro enrollers that you have, those pro people that can sell the district, that's not your front line. You got to worry about the front line. Over and over again, we see one consistent issue. People are treating enrolling new families as a burden instead of being excited about it. They're treating it as a burden instead of an opportunity. And that really frames their entire interaction with a new potential family. And let me give you a couple examples. New family finally gets past the first impression. They go to the door. It's locked. They hit a buzzer. Can I help you? What do you need? What do you want? Not can I help you? It's typically, sometimes it's nice, but a lot of times it's yes. That's not very polite. That's not very warm and inviting. It doesn't make me want to hang out. But can they just be like polite? Can you teach your frontline people to go, may I help you? Just may I help you? That's a great start. Yes, I'm a new family, and we'd like to see about the enrollment process. And all too often, what we hear is, you can go to the website to enroll. Okay, but I'd like to see the school. Well, we don't do tours. So I can't see the school. I can't get a feel for where my child's going to be. Or maybe they'll invite you in. And so sometimes we hear they stop them at the front door. The next best way is they at least allow you to come in and talk to somebody. And they don't have any collateral material. They don't have any packet. They don't have a brochure on why this school rocks, why this school is awesome, why I would pick it. Now, I'm telling you, the charter schools and private schools and homeschools have the why. They have a piece of material they're going to give to that parent, and they're going to have their pro teams, those A players out there. And this is true for some public schools too, for sure. They're going to know what the why is. I want you to pick this school because we're best at blank, blank, and blank. And an even better way to do it is go, what are you looking for in a school? Yes, we have that, and here's why. And you give that brochure to them, give them something to take home. Do you have a step-by-step process of how the enrollment works? Do you want to do it online? Do you want to do it in person? We have both choices to be accommodating to you. And we'll get a little bit more into that in the enrollment process. But the communications, by and large, I could talk about, so I put on some of these slides, negative self-talk. Well, a lot of times, the schools, the people that are giving you the tour, showing you the school, kind of beat up themselves a little bit. They're not excited. They're not proud of the product that they're delivering. Like, we wish these carpets were updated. Well, nobody noticed the carpets weren't updated until you pointed it out. No one noticed that the band didn't have all the equipment they needed until you pointed it out. So I know you want to be honest. I know you want to be straightforward, but we can sell just a little bit. I mean, we can highlight the things that are positive and not direct everyone's attention to the negative. Now, I continue to try to emphasize, I'm only giving you the tough stuff. There were a lot of public schools that we did, and let me give you the vision of perfection that I've seen public schools do. And this is ACEs. It's clean. There's a sign that tells me new families park here, go to the front desk. Just something nice and simple. I can park. Maybe there's a designated parking spot, or at least there's a visitor parking area. I know where to go. It's nice. I arrive. I hit the buzzer. They invite me in. They either schedule a tour at another time with me, or they say, heck, let's go ahead and do it right now for you. Either one's fine. But they give me a brochure. They ask me what I'm looking for in a school. What do I need? What does my child need? What are they interested in? Do they like sports? Do they like nerdy stuff? Science, man? Like, what do I want as a parent? And then they convey that back to me. They listen. And then at the end, they make the ask. They actually asked me to join their family. They actually asked me to enroll. The school districts that did that, I wasn't even living there when we were secret shopping, and I wanted to enroll. I was so excited, right? So a nice first impression. They get you in the door. They get you in the door. They get you in the door. See, it's really already been a long day, and Kayla's making me do this video a week early. So they get us in the door, and they're polite, and they're excited. It's not a burden to the front desk worker. It's part of their job description. It's part of what they do for a living. And they understand how important it is that every student helps increase our budget, and every student helps us educate even more students. And so I think that public schools have the best product. And so I want you to sell the families to get there. And so that's kind of a vision of perfection. And then the enrollment process. It's not complex. It's not 27 pages. I'm gonna really get into that in 1 minute. I know that I'm burning up a lot of time. It's funny, we went to one school and we showed up and they were like, oh, well, you can enroll online, but let me see if there's something around here to give you. Meanwhile, 2 teachers were complaining about a student. Just negative. That student's a liar. That student might have been all those things. Do you really want to air that in front of your clients, in front of your customers? I mean, those teachers should have stopped and taken that discussion to another room. And that's all about proper training. They won't treat it as a burden if they're trained. They won't do negative self-talk in front of people if they're taught what to go and say. During a tour, which I think, by the way, you've got to do, either online right now because of COVID, or in person, or both. Right? A virtual tour is great. Videos, even just static pictures is better than nothing. You got to give them a flavor for what they're going to get. But if your people aren't trained, don't expect them to be great customer service salespeople. You got to train them. And really the first thing I'm going to say is, and the last thing on this point is, you got to teach them that they need to be excited about selling people, and that's their job. So, all right, let me move on. You got them in the door, decent first impression. The person at the front desk was polite, awesome. Maybe they gave them a piece of material that said why you would pick this school. Like, we got great academics, we got a new football field, whatever it is that makes that school special. And then they go to enroll. Well, we've seen this in multiple occasions, and I understand why this happens. We had one district that we were cleaning up their enrollment process. They had a 27-page application to enroll. 27 pages. 27 pages? I mean, the competition will have a page or two. Yeah, you got to bring in those immunization records and birth certificate and all that stuff. But 27 pages is what happens over 100 years of people adding things on the front end. And this is what's really critical. When you have no competition, you can require everyone to get every piece of data on the front end before they're allowed to enroll. With competition, as it is, you should get a lot of that stuff later. Try to get the least amount of things that you have to have by law or to enroll them on the front end, and worry about getting the rest of it later. It was funny, in one enrollment process, we saw that if you didn't return a band uniform or a book, you couldn't enroll. That was it. Even if you had a sibling that had a band uniform or a book not returned, you couldn't enroll. So the district got, I think it was $7,200 per student, and a book was like $15. And somebody made the decision that we were going to let $15 stop us from getting $7,000. I mean, it's just not good business sense. But I understand how it happened. Before there was competition, you could do all those things. You could have all those bureaucratic processes say, we want you to do all this stuff, or forget about it, because they had to do it. Forget about the band uniform. I know don't get mission drift. Our mission is to get the students in, not to worry about $15. Maybe you can encourage them to fundraise later on and help your school district. But the fact that we'd have a barrier, like a book, stopping us from getting that student in, made the enrollment process weak. Now, we have seen charter schools mess this up too. Lots. Enrollment fees. We found, what was it? One charter school had an enrollment fee of, how much was that, Kayla? $315? $315 to enroll. Now, you and I probably both know why that is. They want your best and brightest. So they put a barrier for poor people to get into their school. I'll let you have whatever strong opinion you want to about that. We saw another charter school require both the mother's and the father's name. Or you couldn't even enroll online. Like it was a mandatory item. I didn't have a dad growing up, man. I guess I couldn't go. But I know what they're looking for. 2 family homes. That way, the more parents are focused on getting their kids good grades so they can artificially increase their scores. I know why they're doing it. You can't do that. You gotta cut down those barriers. You would never do that. But any barrier you see, like this is another issue that we saw during the enrollment process. You're allowed to enroll in very limited windows. Very limited amount of time can you enroll. They would have open houses, but the open houses would be during the workday, like 9 to 11 on a school day. Well, how does that help you if you're working for a living? You can't make it. It's like they were checking a box. We have to have an open house so we could say we're trying to enroll people, but it's at a really inconvenient time. It's convenient for us, but not convenient for the parent. And so, think about weekends. Think about after hours. Think about how you're going to schedule tours. But that enrollment process, I also think, should be in paper and online. Some districts have started to convert entirely to online. I dig that. It makes sense for me. There are a lot more people than you would ever believe that do not want to electronically file an enrollment application. You got to have both options, at least for the next several years, until we all, get into the computer age. And I know you think everyone is in America, but they're not. And we've heard that complaint from lots and lots of parents that didn't enroll because it wasn't simple and easy, and maybe that it was a 27-page application versus a 5-page application. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about on enrollment. The district will have typically an enrollment button that people can enroll. That's awesome. If the individual schools also have a website, they need to have an enrollment button on there too. It can link directly to the main site, but that should be prominent, and the why should be present. So let's drift into the website now. Rule number 1, faces, man. Faces. People love to look at faces. They need to be faces of your kids and your family members. It needs to be right there. You need to be proud of them. Are you going to put a virtual tour on either with video or just static pictures of everything so somebody could click on like 100 pictures, which is not hard to add to a website, by the way. Make sure there are flowers up front. Make sure the grass is cut. Make sure it looks pretty. All those things. But those pictures can be there, and make a little showcase for you. Do you have contact information on the website? Is the calendar up to date if you have it? Man, I hate it when those calendars aren't up to date. It just makes it look like you're unorganized. Is the registration enrollment portal easy to find? Top right-hand corner, bold contrasting colors. That's what sells. And by the way, that's also what's compliant with the Americans with Disabilities Act. That's, those contrasting colors. So you can still comply with the law and still make it pop and sell. I don't think that the websites need to have 75 pages of material and every little aspect on it. But the one thing it's got to have is why they would pick it. When we evaluated this particular district, I'm going to go back up to the scorecard here. I think it was 14 schools were on the list. We evaluated 14 schools, 5 of the public, and all the rest were private schools or charter schools. Only 2 of all the schools, it was 1 public and 1 of the charter schools, had the why. Everybody else just kind of assumed that everybody knew why. And what I mean is, why would they pick it? So the public school really highlighted on their sports programs. It was a competitive advantage. The other high schools in the area, maybe they were all equally, academic-wise, didn't have the facilities this school had. So they highlighted that as one of their primary points on why you would pick it. The other thing that they indicated was, hey, all of our students either go to a high-level trade school and make a great living or go on to college. Sounds good to me. I don't even care what the why is as long as you're saying it. But almost all the others didn't address it at all. They just kind of assumed that everyone would get the why. So why would you buy this car? Why would you pick this hotel? Why would you pick this vacation spot? Why would you pick this school? You got to sell it and you got to put it down on the website. You have to have your front desk people know it also so they talk about it. And that why was missed historically on websites. Like I said, on this particular one good charter school, 1 good private school, or public school. And that's pretty much the industry norm. I think 1 or 2 out of 14 is about as good as we get with the why. So if you put the why on every single website, you're above the competition. You're doing better than the competition immediately. So Kayla's giving me Brian, we're almost to a 30-minute window here on this, and that's where she wanted to keep it today. So how bad am I right now?
32.
I'm over already. But let's kind of wrap up a couple key things on this website. I get a lot of questions often about social media. Should we have Facebook links, Twitter links on our website, and should we maintain all that? I don't know. I mean, I kind of know, but I don't know because I don't know you. The issue is the same thing with the calendars. If you're not going to keep it up to date, you're not going to continually post on it, it looks bad. Or if you're going to use it only infrequently for emergencies, that's okay too. But what happens is a lack of consistency. People don't seem to know how they want to use it, and so it's aimless. They ask a volunteer on the staff to do it or a volunteer parent to do it, and it's not vigorous. It doesn't let people know that the manner in which you're using that outlet. So I'm a big fan of, if you're going to have a Facebook page, you put on that statement, say, we only use Facebook for big announcements. So don't expect a lot of updates. But when we do update you, pay attention, kind of like emails. If you can't send out a consistent email by your school or your district like every month, just own it. Own the fact you're only going to send out inconsistent emails. Either one's all right, but it's a real problem when you start sending out an email every week and you do it for 2 years and you're doing great, and then all of a sudden you stop. People think you went out of business. Right? And we've done so much studies on this, is that you were consistent for a long time and then became inconsistent. People think you've closed your doors or your leadership's fallen apart or you're having problems. People will only assume the worst. So just be inconsistent with social media and newsletters if you're going to utilize it and you don't have a paid person actually focus on it. I think that's my pro tip about those things. I like it. I dig it. You got to keep it up. Thank you so much for, one, allowing me to get rid of the webinar we were planning, cut a static video. I don't have any Q&A. I don't have a lot of questions from the people. If people do have questions, you can contact Kayla. We'll put her email right here, and you can ask her questions about all this, and she can respond about kind of how we do this process and ways that you can do it on your own. Just remember, we evaluate those 4 big criteria. You may have other criteria you focus on, but I don't get mission drift. I'm not evaluating the school. So these grades that we gave them on B- does not mean that they're a B- academically. Does not mean that they're a B- sports and after school activities. It means they're a B minus regarding recruiting and enrolling new students. So that's the bucket that we were really focused on for all of our secret shopping platforms. I hope you find some good tips in this and it helps you get a little bit better. Don't worry about perfection. Don't worry about perfection. I know I'm talking to people that want to be perfect and want to do it awesome. Don't worry about an A. Like, just keep working your grade to get it better and better and better and just outperform the competition and you're going to do great. So thanks for watching. I hope you found this helpful.